Hey all, this is 012Boku, and I'm coming at you again with another review of Fullmetal Alchemist, the original. Yes, indeed, we are moving right along, and we've wrote it down here, not here, but yeah, episode 14, Destruction's Right Hand. And in this one, it's was a good episode. It basically had the Elrics going after Dr. Marcoh and looking for him, given that Colonel Mustang, Roy Mustang, left the truth or Colonel of Truth to the Elrics, saying that he knew where he was. But you have to think there are other people who knew where he was, and other people would be after them looking for him. But before we get there too, I started it off this because we basically start off with Mace Hughes and Roy Mustang talking about Scar, people looking for Scar, and how soldiers and alchemists, nine state alchemists have been killed, along with some of their attendants and guards and other people, and how Scar is just on this murderous rampage, basically interrogating people and then killing them. And they found a dead guard out east that was killed by Scar. And, while they're talking about this, we have the rebellion in Lior reaching a huge fight. Rose's town, Lior, where Father Cornello was, and we have this rebellion just getting out of control there. People being killed, people, injured. And I'm not going to say everybody in the military is bad or terrible, but you have townspeople fighting with the priests at the church. You have them ripping down statues of Cornello. You have people who still follow Cornello. One guy saying, Father Cornello said he's this great man of God, or a priest. Why are things not better? Why are we doing this to each other? Why are we treating each other this way? And like he's asking this guy who's wounded. He's got a black eye and all this stuff. He's just shaking him terribly, just wanting these answers where the guy, can't give any. And you see a bunch of other wounded people throughout the town. You have Rose guarding, I think, little children at a school or wherever this building is, but she's just surrounded by a bunch of kids. I'm gonna say between the ages of 3 and probably 8 years old. One of the little kids asks Rose, why don't we fight? Why don't we try to fight? Should we fight? And Rose is like, no, let's stay hidden, stay safe. We can stand on our own 2 feet without fighting. And that goes on. And if she's protecting the children, and I'll get to it now, you basically have Father Cornello come up the steps as, Envy and Gluttony, the two homunculi we've already seen in the show, watch the carnage, watch the devastation. They're just saying how stupid people are, how gullible they are to follow anything, and they'll believe anything anyone tells them. They're foolish creatures. And at this moment too, as they're saying this, like I said, the people are fighting against the priests at the church, and they're pulling down Cornello's statues. The Emestrian soldiers are telling the people to return to their homes, to, leave the area, let them handle this. They have it under control. And I don't know why they do it. It is pretty heinous, but you have a colonel or whoever it is raise his hand. You have these guns come through the fence of the church, and they just start blowing away, killing all the people who were, I guess, resisting there. I mean, they weren't attacking the military per se, but, they just take out the writers like that, and it's like, damn, like, holy crap, And you have, Cornello, as we know, he was killed by Gluttony Eaton, but we have Cornello coming up the stairs, and if you guys remember, Cornello was Envy, and, Andy Mullins, who does the voice of Cornello, gives a great thing saying how, humans will follow anyone as long as they have the right to believe it in anyone to stir the pot, So Andy Mullins basically saying that, that they'll do anything foolish as long as we tell them. Or I shouldn't say Andy Mullins voices Cornello, but Cornello himself says that. And as it continues, you have Cornello reveal himself truly as Envy now, where Envy is this androgynous. I was going to say Envy. Envy is a guy, I do believe, but Envy has always had an androgynous look where he's a cross between a guy and a female, and his voice is female, which is why in Japanese Envy's voiced by a girl. And actually, I have it here, and it's Wendy Powell in English, but let's see, and yeah, Wendy Powell, and in Japanese it's Mayumi Yamaguchi. And, so that's why that's there, because Envy has an androgynous look, and they're basically talking things. Brother Cray comes up the stairs wondering what happened to Father Cornello, and, Envy's like, well, maybe we should just tell you the truth, because would anyone believe you if you go out and tell them if we tell you the truth? And then Gluttony being Gluttony's like, can I eat him? And then, Brother Cray, who just stands there stupidly, I might add, gets eaten by Gluttony. And it continues. Plus, Envy talks about how the Elrics are getting close to, too close to figuring out the truth way too soon, and they have to keep both the Elric brothers in line. And, they specifically mentioned the Fullmetal Alchemist, Edward Elric, but they basically say how they need to keep both of them in line so they both don't figure out the truth. Because they say, unlike in Brotherhood, where they're a high candidate for sacrifice, that they are the alchemists close to, basically achieving a goal that the homunculi want to do. What that goal is, we don't know yet. You guys probably know if you've seen the show. But what that goal is, we don't know yet. But I like that a lot better than, they're a high candidate for sacrifice because, father. But as well, it brings more mysticism into it because we don't know what the homunculi want them to do yet. But they're like, we have to keep them from discovering the truth too soon, otherwise they probably won't go through with what we're trying to do. So I thought that was a nice little touch. And again, you have Edward and Alphonse. Get to this. Yeah, did I have the town here? Oh, man, yeah, I can't. Oh, yeah. I cannot, yeah, I forget the name. I don't think I put down the name of the town. Plus, the pen I was using to write these notes this time was bad, so I can't see everything I wrote with absolute clarity. Because, yeah, the pen, I guess, was on a thing where it had ink only on a part of the pen, and part of the pen didn't write. But let's see. I forget the town they said Marcoh was in, but they get to the town. The townspeople love Marcoh, but they don't know him as Marcoh. They know him as Dr. Morrow. And, they said how Dr. Morrow helped them when they were sick or injured, helped somebody's wife, somebody's daughter, somebody's son, elderly men, young men, it didn't matter. Morrow was a hero to these people. And then, as well, Edward and Alphonse also have to hide because they realize they're being trailed by Major Alex Louis Armstrong, who we will learn in this episode was told by Colonel Hughes to watch the Elrics. So again, it wasn't done by Mustang, but it was done by Colonel Hughes. Again, showing how much Colonel Hughes respects the hell out of the Elric brothers and how they are essentially friends. But they don't know this yet, but basically you have the Elrics avoid detection so far from Major Alex Louis Armstrong. They find Dr. Marcoh. Dr. Marcoh tries to, shoot at them, but Edward basically barely dodges the bullet. You have Alphonse getting into him saying, if you shoot me, I can't die, so go ahead and try to shoot me, Dr. Marcoh, but we really need to talk to you. Dr. Marcoh notices that Alphonse is hollow on the inside, or I think he can tell, and he tells that, them that, so you are who you say you are. You're the Fullmetal Alchemist. And Edward's like, actually, that's me. So Edward getting, took as always. Plus, there's a small joke that Marcoh makes, even though he's not meaning it as a joke, but they treat it as a joke because as soon as the word small is mentioned to Edward, which I think they were mentioned to how, like, in English, it's sort of an offhanded comment, which drives Edward nuts. And then in Japanese, it's more the fact that they are still children and young youths. So that Edward still takes it bad. He's like, Alphonse having to hold him back. But, they get to talking, and Marcoh basically says, you know, I don't want to give you my notes. I don't want to tell you because I went into hiding for that war. I did not want to have anything to do with it. You guys have no idea what I did, you know, and I forget what he's called in Brotherhood, but in this one he's called the Crystal Life Alchemist. To where, I mean, I like that title, the Crystal Life, because it just has a nice ring to what Marcoh probably really wanted to do as a doctor, but the military didn't allow him that. And that was a nice touch. But as they're talking, you know, Marcoh just refuses to tell them much about it. He doesn't want to reveal anything out of fear of what could happen and what these boys could do. Plus, he says, you boys are just children. You shouldn't know any of this. And then Edward, in pleading despair, basically keeps asking. Marcoh refuses. Alphonse mentions the children and Xenotime, which causes a reaction from Marcoh. Alphonse pleads again. This time, Marcoh looks over to a wall like that, or like this one. I think it was like that to where it's, to where it was, or no, it was his right side, because I'm thinking if I'm the camera, he looks like that, like to the side like that. So, you know, Edward caught that, which, again, nice attention to detail for the show. Edward caught that, ran over to the wall, used alchemy on the wall, and Marcoh notices it's without a transmutation circle, to where Edward finds, you know, the Philosopher's Stone, possibly, that Marcoh made, because Marcoh's the man who made it. And he has it in a glass. Marcoh's trying to rush at him. Alphonse stops Edward from trying to use it or trying to, like, see what it is. All of a sudden, you know, in the struggle between all three of them, Edward drops the bottle. The bottle breaks. This liquid comes out of the bottle, but just forms as a round little oval, like a stone. So again, the Philosopher's Stone, but made of liquid. Very nice concept and interesting concept. I think actually based on the original lore too, if I'm not mistaken. To that point, though, as they're standing in shock and awe, you have all of a sudden Boss Grand come into the room, and he's there to take Dr. Marcoh back. He basically stands there. Marcoh and him trade barbs. Marcoh says, "Oh, Brigadier General Boss Grand, well, you definitely politicked your way up to the top." And Boss Grand, you know, doesn't even deny it. He's like, you're right. I did what I had to do, and I'm proud of it. And then, you know, like, Edward, his curiosity and desperation playing in here big time, asks even Boss Grand, how do you know this came to be? Can we see the lab where you guys possibly did all this stuff? Boss Grand outright refuses them and says, no, you know, you upstarts aren't going to get a look at anything. I'm taking this band back to face judgment and to do what he possibly needs to do because he's a traitor. So, but you guys are not going to find out anything else. And then the military guys are dragging Dr. Marcoh away. Dr. Marcoh is pleading with his life and saying, you know, you don't know what I've done. I don't want to do the experiments anymore. I can't go back there. You can't make me go back, please. You know, and it's way worse than how I'm doing it. And, you know, Bryce Armstrong, who voiced him in English, and even the guy in Japanese, which I'll probably go over these again, but I'm just saying this is how Okoji Totomi both gave great performances in this one. And, I mean, I absolutely loved it. And, you know, they get him into the car. You see all the townspeople saddened and shocked about what they're seeing. And as they're driving away, Edward is actually chasing after Boss Grand because he remembers Nina and Shao Tucker, and he doesn't want that to happen again. And, sorry, again, I'm still dealing with allergies, guys, so I apologize for blowing us. But as he's running after them, Scar is there, and Scar stops the car of Boss Grand and Marcoh that they're in, and he basically explodes the car. The two guards in the front are more than likely killed. We don't see what happens to them, but we only see Boss Grand and Marcoh laying there. Marcoh sees that Scar's an Ishvalan, so he's like, okay, this is judgment for my sins. I'm going to die, so be it. Boss Grand, who's full of bravado and arrogance, you know, he's reaching for the Philosopher's Stone, thinking he's going to be absolutely invincible, because we see in a prior scene where when Marcoh was making the stones, Basra became this metal man with all these guns, killing all the Ishvalan during the war. And, he's about to reach forward again. Scar does not give him any time to react. He puts his hand on his head, explodes his brains out in a very violent fashion, and holy crap, Basran is dead. You have... What's his name? Oh, Dr. Marcoh. Sorry, Dr. Marcoh. Got so into it, I forgot his name. Dr. Marcoh just sitting there. Scar knows he's a state alchemist. He's about to kill Dr. Marcoh. Edward intercedes, saves Dr. Marcoh. They start running away. Alphonse traipsing right behind him, running behind him. And you have, Scar knowing who, Fullmetal Alchemist Edward Elric is. And Edward Elric's like, what did I do to this guy? But I'm pretty sure that's the guy I saw years ago outside the state library. So what's going on? And then, as they're going, Alphonse used his alchemy to create a hole in the wall. Or no, to have, there's like this little drainage alcove. They go into it, and, Edward, or Alphonse uses his alchemy to put up the wall so that they can hide. And then they're hiding, and then all of a sudden Scar finds out where they are, breaks through the wall. They start running another way. Scar uses his directed alchemy again of destruction to basically bring down the ceiling of the alcove or drainage to block their path. The Elrics start fighting the, Scar, and Edward, gets his arm hit. Well, Alphonse first blocks it. Alphonse gets his armor cracked, and then, Edward gets it used on him, but the automail protects his arm from Scar, because it's like Scar wasn't prepared for it. And you have Scar make mentions to his brother, to, Edward saying, you're like my brother, you're kind. You have the possibility of inventions, you're thoughtful, you're an opportunist like he is. You have all these great things, and your eyes are kind like his was. And you also see there was this female with Scar's brother. We don't know who it is, but obviously you can tell it's probably going to lead to something, because that will be important later on. And then Alphonse tries to reason with Scar, saying, hey, if that's your brother would not want you to do this, and you know why I'm going to protect him. And then he basically says to Alphonse, well, then I will give you a painful lesson of what will happen when you lose your brother. Basically just throwing it right back in his face. This gets Edward to react, and Edward comes at him. Scar basically tries to get at him again. As he almost gets at him a second time, that's when you have Alex Louis Armstrong come in, reveal himself to the Elrics and Dr. Marcoh. They think he's going to take Dr. Marcoh back, but he just gets in front of the Elrics, and he starts fighting Scar in awesome fashion. Edward and Alphonse run away with Dr. Marcoh. They get outside, they're in the forest outside of the town, and Edward gives Dr. Marcoh the stone back. Dr. Marcoh is shocked by this, and he said, you use this to help people. It belongs to you. You're not trying to do anything malicious. You're trying to help people. And that's how it ends. It ends with them going on. Oh, also, they said it was General Hakuro, but it isn't him. I mean, if Hakuro got more skinny, pale, and old looking, but this general comes in, or commander of some kind of the Emestrian army, I forgot to say, comes in. They find the kids with Rose, and they want Rose to basically say where the resistance is. We're trying to help you, but Rose says, well, you guys are killing our people, you're hurting our people, you're not really helping that much. And the commander slaps Rose in the face, saying, why resist? And she's like, well, we got to stand on our own 2 feet. Only we can do that. You guys can't even do that for us either. And that was that part of it as well. But that is also the episode. I've got to say again, let's see, my characters: Edward, Vic Mignogna, Romy Paku, Alphonse, Aaron Desmook, Rie Kugamiya. Great performances. I have to give it to Scar, Damian Clark, Ryotaro Okiayu. Me and Jarek already talked about this, I'll probably mention it now. I like Damian Clark as Scar better than J. Michael Tatum. He liked J. Michael Tatum better, but I think Damian Clark gives a great performance, especially if this is supposed to still be a younger Scar, where Brotherhood, it's like they treat him as older. which again, it works for J. Michael Tatum, and this one works for Damian Clark, but I still think Damian Clark gives the better performance. Ryotaro Okayayu also gave a great performance in this one. Let's see. I got to give it to Marcoh, Bryce Armstrong, Koji Totomi. Again, great performance from both Bryce Armstrong and his weathered scientist who's seated up, who's done doing the atrocities, is begging at the end. Very powerful stuff. His willingness to accept death, very powerful stuff, but he's confronted with Scar. Gotta give it to Boss Gron too. Bruce Elliott, Shin Aramori. You know, Boss Gron in Japanese and English is very, very intimidating in both versions, and just like completely vindictive. In Brotherhood, he just seems like a tough asshole. In this one, you can see more of Boss Gron's vindictiveness, which I like, and how it comes out. And it's just like, holy shit, this guy. But again, it was a very good performance. I have to give a also Dark Horse favorite to Rose, Colleen Quickenbeard, Hoko Kuwashima. Great performance from that too, for the little time that she was in here. And, you know, basically standing up to the soldiers, protecting the kids, heartfelt, compassion, you know, also mixed with fear, wanting to stand up to the people who are trying to oppress them in the military. Even though I think the military is genuinely trying to help, but you probably think again, because like in Brotherhood, not to get ahead of us in Brotherhood and in this show, there will be a type of military coup, and it makes you wonder how many people were for the establishment and how many people really wanted to protect the people of Amestria. So yeah, you will still have that as well. Overall, this is a great episode. I mean, it moves the needle greatly. We see a great character connected with the Philosopher's Stone. Scar makes his first deep appearance in this first season. Even though, yes, we're more than halfway through, it's just powerful, it's big, it's emotional, it gives you everything you want to know. But for you guys, what do you guys think? Leave a comment down below, and we'll talk to you again later, right? Well, until then, this is 012 Boku coming at you with another review, and I'll see you guys again later, right?